So what are we ever going to do with this stuff? Well, figured I'll give you a little bit of something that applies to, unfortunately, almost everybody's life, either for themselves or for people that they're involved with, and that is cancer. We're talking about cell division. I've already mentioned this a little bit, and this is people go, we can do these wonderful things, why can't we cure cancer? The problem is that, to a very large extent, there's no such thing as cancer, except in its very advanced forms. And we do have a lot of treatments for it, but once it's really advanced, it is hard to get control of. But we'll talk a little bit about beginnings. What you start out with is genes change. Sometimes the genes themselves change, is that you get a mutation and the protein produced doesn't do what it's supposed to do. We actually have proteins that work in our dividing cells. Remember, this happens in cells that normally would be dividing anyway. And there are almost like patrol proteins that make sure things don't get out of control. They call them tumor suppressor genes. Some of the first genes associated with cancers, when they made the connection, turned out to be genes that when they stop functioning, the cells can divide out of control. Now, you don't only get changes in the gene codes themselves, you also get changes in expression of genes, where cell divides, a whole bunch of genes at that point are supposed to turn off. And then the cell's supposed to go and interface and do its job. Well, if they don't go off, they just keep going and go, okay, a little bit of growth and divide again, a little bit of growth and divide again, a little bit of growth and divide again. That's another thing that basically starts a cancer. These are virtually always cells that are legitimately damaged. And keep in mind, we've got a lot of processes to check these, right? We check our DNA before we make more DNA for a cell to divide. That goes wrong. Cells get damaged and they get picked up by your signaling system, and they go, okay, you're too messed up, you need to die. Remember apoptosis? Things can go wrong where they're told to die and they don't have the response system, so they just keep dividing. Or in some cases, the outside recognition that the cells are damaged, something about their markers makes your immune system not aware that something's wrong. So they never come in and try to eliminate those cells or tell those cells to die on their own. There's a whole list of different things that can go wrong, all of which kind of kickstart this out of control division. Oops. As cancers progress, they become like an invasive organism. And they are damaged, so they, much more than most other organisms, there's a tremendous amount of variety in them for mutations. Remember that they're asexual producers, they're producing copies, but they're messed up, and so they are like randomly turning genes on and off. And a tremendous number of cancer cells just die because they do something that makes them unable to live. And we're producing cancers, potentially cancerous cells all the time, and most of them don't survive long enough to actually become a group of them. Think about, from the cancer standpoint, what it needs. It needs to be a somewhat stable group of cells that can set itself up and continue to live inside the bigger body of the person that it started from. Some of them will spread. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's only a handful of different genes that you can turn on that are going to make that likely to happen. So what you see in advanced cancers is a lot of the activated genes, a lot of the things that they do are very similar from one cancer that started as lung cancer, one cancer that started as breast cancer, one cancer that started as skin cancer. Eventually, the needs of being a successful cancer produce very similar mutations, and it's convergent evolution. So people look at advanced cancers and go, wow, these have a lot of the same genes in common. Well, duh, they needed them, or they never would have gotten to the point where you would have sampled those genetics to find them. Cancers really get dangerous when some of the cells spread, set up shop somewhere else, and form new tumors elsewhere in the body. Advanced cancers also turn on a lot of genes where they can basically steal all sorts of nutrients from the host body. Fortunately, they can't spread to other hosts like a lot of other diseases can. There is one contagious cancer among Tasmanian devils, but we're not going to get into that. Metastasis or metastasis is where some of the cells activate the pseudopod genes, the genes that allow white blood cells to crawl around, and they actually migrate away from the original tumor site and set up shop somewhere else. Often it's been prepped because they've released other kinds of chemicals, or they've co-opted your immune system to set up another site for them. But basically you go from having a localized tumor to tumors all over the place. And that, of course, is advanced cancer and very, very difficult to get a hold of. If you hear about people that are getting alternative treatments and they go, oh, it's great, it kills, it'll make your cancer go away and it doesn't have any side effects, it's not doing anything. Here's the problem. Any kind of treatment you have, almost, has to poison your own body cells, because that's what the cancer cells are. It depends on what you're going after. If you're going after dividing cells, then there's other cells in your body that are dividing that are going to be effective. So a lot of treatments affect your skin or the linings of your digestive system or the linings of your reproductive system or your breathing system. They cause rashes and digestive issues and make your hair fall out. You're going after dividing cells. There's going to be collateral damage. Most of the treatments are going to have collateral damage. Is that you throw chemicals at somebody to poison something the cancer cells are doing, there's a good chance something else in the body is doing that. There's very few things that won't happen. Tumors, if you're an adult, you're growing a tumor, sometimes they will release a chemical, they'll turn this gene on, and blood vessels will invade the tumor to keep it alive. That's something you could go after, whereas if you're already grown, you're not doing that anymore. When you form new tissues growing up, you did. But that's a treatment that you can go after to try to block the nutritional supply of a tumor. Problem is they have other alternatives to keep themselves alive as well. So that doesn't turn to work out as well. Another thing, a whole bunch of new treatments are trying to marshal. Now your immune system is set up to recognize damaged cells and remove them. That includes cancer cells, but a lot of cancer cells have ways to get around that. A lot of modern immunological, there's like 3,000 different studies going on right now, are trying to take your immune system and goose it so that it will go after the cancers. But it also sometimes goes after your own cells and produces autoimmune diseases. Again, side effects from the effects. It is one of the things they're trying to do is that they're genetically analyzing the cancers, and cancers that have SLID mutations in a particular way may be more prone to react to certain chemotherapies or less prone to react to certain chemotherapies. So they do some genetic analysis and they'll go, well, this drug should work better on you than this drug should work. A lot of that stuff is still in the process of being worked out. It's not as certain as they make it sound, but your odds go up. If you've got a certain type of cancer genetically, it may respond to certain types of chemotherapy better than others, certain types of immunotherapy better than others. But everything is tough to throw at a cancer that is very, very advanced, that's all over the body. Your body is being weakened, and the treatments are gonna weaken it even further. So it's a tough thing to treat. If you're lucky early on, you can actually take out where the cancer is, but there's certain parts of your body you can't actually remove. That's one of the reasons why pancreatic cancer is so dangerous, is you can't just take somebody's pancreas out. And also, your pancreas doesn't have any pain receptors, so you usually don't know it's there until it's fairly well advanced and probably already metastasized. Ovarian cancer, you can take the ovaries out, but usually by the time you know somebody has ovarian cancer from symptoms, it has metastasized already. And so you're dealing with an advanced form of disease. Okay, I just wanted to tie this into the stuff that we were talking about, because these things do evolve, right? We just talked about evolution. They evolve as a little population of alleles, a little gene pool in and of themselves. So I wanted to tie it into this chapter. But that is finally the end of this chapter.